Father Gascoigne, the One Reborn, Martyr Logarius, Lady Maria, Gehrman, and his doll, and the Orphan of Kos. What motivates these characters to act? What is Bloodborne actually about, anyway? Well, sex, obviously. Cleric Beast. I can pick out the shrieks of frustration from a mile away. Gascoigne. Sex. Blood-starved Beast. More like the butt-starved Beast, because he's starving for that ass. Vicar Amelia. Must abstain, or else she becomes a sex-crazed animal. Rom, the vacuous spider. Dumb bimbo.
What's up, dude?
The One Reborn. Looks like Abridus and Amygdala had a baby and then accidentally stepped on it. Martyr Logarius. The man is a walking chastity belt. Amygdala actually fucks your mind. You see, because its name is Abridus, daughter of the cosmos. I mean, look at her. Just oozes sex. Murgo's wet nurse. First off, she looks after her baby. Second, why is she so wet? No one ever asks. Gehrman and his sex doll. I mean, it's Maria. The doll is Maria. And of course, when we reach her astral clock tower, she grabs us, pulls us in close, and proceeds to give us the business. Moon presence. You need to eat 3 umbilical cords in order to court her. Sounds pretty kinky to me. Orphan of Kos. An overgrown fish baby swinging around a giant placenta axe. A goddamn placenta axe. And that's not even mentioning the NPCs. Ariana, Woman of the Night. As she's so aptly described, she is a Lady of the Night. She's a Oh, she also does the dirty with a Great One and has its mutated child, which she loves very much. The Old Lady, who provides a shoulder to cry on, just like a mom would. And she gives you drugs. Eileen the Crow, the NPC most in need of a good romp. Yharnam, the Marian Queen, who bore the special formless child Murgo, and of course Yosefka, who you find in this position. And that's not even close to recounting every single instance related to this topic. You might be saying to yourself, no, Bloodborne is definitely not about sex. And dear viewer, you would be wrong, or at least partly wrong. Or you might be thinking to yourself, finally, someone understands Bloodborne's true appeal, its true nature. And to you I say, take it easy. When people talk about Bloodborne, the first thing you tend to hear is related to its mood or art style. The gothic, blood-stained streets of Yharnam are truly unlike anything else in gaming. They talk about the grotesque creature and boss design, and the terrifying moments that often make Bloodborne feel like a horror game. But what people fail to truly capture in this analysis is the demented and overtly obsessive nature of all the world's denizens. Why is everyone in this world in a maddened, fever-like state? Well, the blood has gone bad, of course, and it's turned everyone into raving lunatics. But underneath it all, permeating every enemy, boss, and NPC encounter, is this obsession to reproduce. With each other, with a Great One, or with multiple. This fixation on birth, death, and rebirth, to copulate, the coitus, the dirty nasty, the so to speak. This is raunchy stuff, people. Now, the thought of these smelly, unbathed, blood-soaked heathens getting together to do a little bit of the devil's disco is revolting, but nonetheless justifiable. I mean, everyone needs some love, even this guy. But I'm not actually talking about sex in the physical sense. I'm talking about it in a more metaphysical one, because it isn't so much the act itself that's important. Its resulting effects, the significance of these events, and their impacts in the physical world are what actually motivates certain characters to take specific actions. But what's my point? My point is that the core focus for a lot of the characters in Bloodborne, except for maybe the player, are children of Great Ones or related to conception or birth in some way. The obsession with conception, birth, and the children that result from them are what drives the background narrative. Half the game you hear a formless infant crying in the distance. You hear stories of Great Ones impregnating NPCs or other off-screen characters, and the countless mother figures Eileen, who instructs and tries to teach the player early on, the Thumerian Queen, who you encounter multiple times throughout the game, Ariana, who offers the player a buff in the form of a consumable and ultimately has an unwanted child with a Great One of her own, this old lady who gives you medicine, and of course Murgo's wet nurse, who guards or protects the child Murgo. All are there to reinforce this theme of conception and birth. Now, notice how I haven't used the word love much in this analysis. And that's because love is not a factor in these relations, and in fact, the only love we encounter in Bloodborne can be reduced to an old man recreating his favorite student in the form of a doll we find in the Hunter's Tree. Now, you may be able to look at retired hunter Jira, his lore and his decisions, and attribute compassion to his story, but that is not love. That is just the story of a man so defeated by guilt that the only way he can move past this moral dilemma is to spare the beasts of Old Yharnam. That is not love. That is guilt and shame. Love is completely devoid in the world of Bloodborne. Which leads me to my final point. Generally, sex without love is meaningless, but not in Bloodborne. The Great Ones attempt to conceive children over and over, always yearning for the child they lost, but they themselves cannot conceive love. And the impact this has on the greater world is that love is a distant memory, a totem of a bygone era. But as we progress the story and learn more about the world and its inhabitants, we realize that perception of reality has been distorted to such a degree that love no longer has a place in this world. It's been replaced with obsession and dangerous curiosity. And throughout the entire journey that is Bloodborne, after surviving all the gauntlets and intense boss battles, after defeating the nightmare, the player is left wondering what meaning there is to be found in their journey. One interpretation of the ending can leave you feeling that your entire journey was totally meaningless. What was the point of all this? If we choose to allow Gehrman to kill us, we are then woken up and we rise in the waking world, a version of Yharnam that looks slightly less shitty than the one we just spent tens of hours in. If we refuse Gehrman, but did not consume the umbilical cords, we wake to ourselves, the player, essentially taking Gehrman's place in the Hunter's Tree, restarting the hunt all over again. And finally, if we eat the 3 umbilical cords and defeat the Moon Presence, we, the player, become an infant Great One. But at what cost and for what reason? Sex and its implications. This is the only motivation I can think of. The player just wants some of that sweet, hot Great One action. Just like everyone else in this world, they've just lost so much of what makes them human that they don't know that they've even lost it. Or maybe they do know what they've lost and have been driven mad by the realization that they will never truly be human ever again, or love ever again. Whatever the case may be, once we become a Great One ourselves, sex is back on the menu.
Looks like
Sex.
back on the menu, boys.
Weird, formless, immaculate conception type hanky-panky. Ultimately, no matter how ridiculous it may sound, I believe Bloodborne. No matter how ridiculous it may sound, I believe Bloodborne is a metaphor for losing love in one's life, and in turn, losing all reason and logic, and ultimately committing heinous sexual acts. Master Willem feared the old blood, but his fascination with eyes and seeing the truth left him in a perpetual state of seeking but never finding. Lawrence believed that the blood was the path to salvation, but ultimately abandoned reason in search of greater power. The discovery of blood made their dream of evolution a reality. Metamorphosis and the excesses and deviation that followed were only the beginning. I understand that this perspective may seem absurd and even a little troll-like, but I assure you, I believe every word in this video.
I'm super cereal.
What seems like the goal for the player from start to finish, to escape the nightmare, is never fully understood. When and if we escape the nightmare, what happens next? If we decide to stay in the Hunter's Dream and replace Gehrman, why? What is our motivation in doing so? And if we decide to transcend humanity itself and become an infant great one, what motivation other than reproduction and power is there? If the great ones were obsessed with conceiving a child themselves, what's to say that motivation doesn't become our own the moment we become a great one? So I say, let's throw on some Marvin Gaye and let's get it on.